What is up, everybody, and welcome to a weekend edition of the All-NBA Show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined, as always, over the weekend by my esteemed colleague, Marc Stein of the Stein Line and the DLLS Mavs. Mark, how you doing on this Sunday?
Adam Mares. Let me tell you something. The Buffalo Sabres have won 6 straight NHL hockey games for the first time since some stretch in 2022 that I don't even remember. And in a handful of days, they'll be playing on the road here in Dallas. I'll get to see them with my own eyes. Right before that, I got the Cal State Fullerton basketball team playing at SMU, the first time they've played in Dallas since I've lived here. Lot of sports fan glory or extreme pain awaiting your guy.
Do you
in
think
these final days of 2025?
Do you think there's anybody else on earth that's a Hotspurs, Sabres, Fullerton? Like, what are all the teams that you have? Is there anybody else on earth that has your cocktail of rooting interest?
Man City, Cal State Fullerton, and the Buffalo Sabres. I'm going to guess not. I'm going to guess that's a trifecta that cannot be duplicated worldwide.
That's what makes you, you, man. And not just a little fan, as we all know, a super fan as well of all of these. And then in between all of that, you somehow find time to know what's going on in the NBA, what's really going on behind the scenes. That's why we always have you on over the weekends to kind of get the inside scoop. This week, we're going to be talking about officiating because officiating took center stage. There was some high-profile games that, Chris Finch getting thrown out of a game and then the Timberwolves beating the Thunder. We're going to talk about that and some of the things that were being said publicly, maybe some things that were said behind the scenes. I'm very curious. We're also going to talk about the team, maybe the outside of the Clippers, who are probably the most at DEFCON 1. The other team that is approaching DEFCON 1 is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who play on Christmas night. We're going to talk about them. And then later on in the show, it is the week of Christmas. And the slate of Christmas games, as I was prepping for the show and looking at them, trying to figure out which one I'm most excited for, all of them are very good. A couple of them are incredible. And so we're going to talk about that and preview that. But I'm going to start, as I always do, by asking you, what is it people are talking about around the NBA? I assume officiating is near the top of that. But is there something I didn't mention right now that you wanted to lead off with?
No, look, I think the people that I speak to, because trade season began on December 15th, honestly, I think in my calls, the G League showcase is going on in Orlando where you've got front office executives from all 30 teams. I would say from them, the first subject would really be the Cavs or the Clippers. I'm getting a lot more of those comments, but you're not wrong. I mean, officiating has been just a huge topic all week long. I think both you and I in our home sphere saw some wild action with, I was at that Detroit-Dallas game where JB Bickerstaff and the refs were at odds from seemingly minute one. Cade Cunningham was as mad in the second. Look, I admittedly do not see every Pistons game. I've never seen Cade Cunningham as upset as I saw him in the second quarter. And I think some people thought that Cade actually got ejected at halftime, and no, it was a technical that JB Bickerstaff got at halftime. That was super contentious. David Adelman, in your neighborhood, certainly had his issues with the refs the other night. But yeah, the Chris Finch eruption on the refs in a game against the Thunder that ended up working out beautifully for the Wolves, that has certainly been one of the stories of the week and has a lot of people talking. And I think you're more excited to get into this than me. just because you have to understand. I think I have, like, you got to remember where I live. I've covered the Dallas Mavericks from close range for more than 25 years. That involves a lot of debates and discussion about referees with a certain Mark Cuban. So this is a topic that, I've gone over and over and over and over again. And look, I do not want to discount the issues because, again, this week, and we've just seen a string of these lately. Ime Udoka just
Yeah.
going off and getting fined. JB Bickerstaff, Adelman, and certainly Chris Finch. So this has been going on for a week, and it's just, the thing is, to me, it's never been easily fixed. Like, what is the fix? I've been asking Cuban for a quarter century. What is the fix? What
Yeah.
is the magic? What is the magic? This sport is super hard to referee in real time. And so, but look, I think we have some thoughts from JJ Redick as well. Inconsistency from referees is something that is talked about a lot. I mean, there's no question this is a major thing in the league right now. No question about it.
Well, you just said, what is the fix? And I think first you have to ask, is there a problem? What is the problem? Because for your point, Mark Cuban has been talking about officiating very publicly for 20 years, and the league is completely different than it was 20 years ago. It's called different. It's played different. The complaints he might have had 15, 20 years ago are different than the complaints he might have now because of how different it is. And so I'm very sensitive and appreciative of the fact that, yes, this sport is hard to officiate, and even when you change the rules or add emphasis in different places, it's still always going to be subjective and have this level of variance that's tough to understand. But it did come to a head this week, I feel, because to your point, I mean, we can go to the Denver-Houston game. Controversial finish in the final minutes of the first matchup last week on Tuesday. The last 2-minute report comes out, says there was 3 incorrect calls, all favoring Denver. That was a game that went to overtime and then finished. Those teams match up again 5 days later. A very physical game. David Adelman gets thrown off. It almost feels like the refereeing swung the other direction of, okay, maybe we screwed up over here, so we're going to allow some murder over here. And then you go to the Detroit-Dallas game, and to your point, when we did a breakdown of that game on the show, Leg said it looked like prison rules basketball. So yes, there were high profile moments here across the league, but the one that I feel like stole all the headlines was Minnesota versus Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And this is the one where Chris Finch gets thrown out. And first of all, I don't know how you feel. What percentage of coaches getting thrown out is deliberate? Meaning the coach is like, you know what? I'm going to get thrown out here. And maybe it'll rally my team. Maybe it'll change the officiating or whatever. And then which ones just happen, on an accident, a guy loses control. Because I feel like that one he was mad, but got himself tossed out.
Well, look, Chris Finch has been talking about his issues with the way Thunder games are officiated going back to last spring's playoffs, maybe even before that. And I think when Chris Finch spoke after his ejection, he did acknowledge that he went into the game like it premeditated is probably too strong, but was it on his mind that he was going to make a strong statement on behalf of his guys early in that game? I think it is fair to say that what it was on his mind. And look, the way it worked out, they got almost 50 free throws in that game. They ended up winning. But not only that, you hear the way his players spoke about it after.
Yes.
Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle could not have been more excited about their coach sticking up for them like that. And so when the people I've talked to, they, what was the downside for Chris Finch? He got fined $35K. Well worth it for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, it turned into a bonding thing. This is a Wolves team that the Wolves started the season winning every game against teams with sub 500 records and then losing to every team with winning records. So given the Wolves start to then come back and beat a Thunder team that was 25-2 and started the week 24-1, that loss, the Thunder have swiftly gone from a 79 win pace to a 73 win pace because they've lost a couple here now. I mean, there were so many more benefits than negatives for Chris Finch that, I mean, I'm not finding too many people who having like there. What did he risk? I mean
Right.
that was he strengthened his own hand with his team.
Agreed.
He brought all this attention to the way the Thunder are officiated, which is a hot button topic in the league, as we know. And it's interesting. I talked to one veteran coach this week who told me, look, younger refs see that, and there might be some who don't want to mess with Finch now because they don't want to be they don't want to be, you know, they don't want to like set off that kind of angry reaction for a coach. So again, when in the people I've talked to, I'm not running into too many people who said, "Man, Finch crossed the line there. That was a mistake." I mean, you know, and I think your guy David Adelman kind of said the same thing, didn't he?
100%. And this is what's interesting about it is it's you get the two of them getting ejected. Or Ime Udoka wasn't ejected, but after the game, he had some very stern words that obviously went
Really
viral.
strong, really strong criticism.
Very strong that went viral. And that's the key is okay. Because I think for Finch, you said it the way you framed it, I think was right. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but it was almost like strategic. He knew what he was doing and how many goals can you accomplish in one move? And yes, his team had his back. I think Anthony Edwards said, I'm paying that fine. His team had his back. It rallied them together, but it also rallied them behind him, which I think is always important for a coach in the NBA. You always have to kind of be finding these moments to galvanize your team and get them to have your back. So he did that, but more importantly, they draw 47 fouls. They beat the Thunder, which anytime the Thunder lose, it's a big deal. They've only lost now 3 games all year, 25-3. So they get a huge win. And then you look at Ime Udoka, they play the Nuggets just a few nights later, completely dominate them. I think, there are a lot of things tip your hat to them. They outplayed Denver thoroughly in every single category in that game. But it was a response to a game that they felt they were wrong from earlier. So I have to imagine coaches look around and take note of this and say, man, 2 times a coach took a fine, was very pointed in their comments. It went viral and it worked out for them. I just have to imagine other coaches around the league look at this and say, noted.
Yeah, and it's there's no question that this is a significant topic in coaching circles. Again, I think most of the executives that I'm talking to are so focused on trade season that this is really a coach centric topic, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here because again we've had all these ejections and fines. You referenced the Ime Udoka statement where Ime Udoka came out after that first game and said 2 of the refs didn't belong on the floor and the other one was starstruck. And he's referring to Zach Zarba, who is as experienced a referee as you'll find in the league and is as well regarded and highly rated a referee as you'll find in this league. But again, I mentioned to you, Mark Cuban, I've been hearing him rail about this topic for literally decades. And, if you want to buy into what he would say, he would tell you that it's a management issue, that the NBA needs to bring in outside management that doesn't have a referee background, that isn't someone from within the league. I'm not so sure that is the pathway. He's convinced. I don't think this is an easy fix because I just feel like refereeing in the NBA is extremely difficult because of how much is going on in real time. We started out talking about my beloved soccer. That's a sport where, same thing, no shortage of refereeing disputes and controversies weekend after weekend in the Premier League. But look, they even have VAR in international soccer. The NBA hasn't gone fully to the earpieces where referees can have in-game contact from Secaucus, but that is coming in the second half of the season. That's slated to begin in January. In top-level soccer, they do have that where the referee has the earpiece and can gets help from the review center, replay center, whatever you want to call it. It's an incredibly difficult sport to officiate. So I do have sympathy for referees who are trying to do this in real time. And, it's not easy. I don't think it's getting any easier because the levels of scrutiny that are applied in the social media age are really unlike they've ever been. And, Monty McCutcheon, who runs the officiating program, in all my years covering the league, I would put Monty up there as high as you can think of in terms of someone who I know cares about the craft, cares about his profession. They're trying to get this thing right. But look, I mean, we should play what JJ Redick said. I mean, this is, you have such different perspectives here from the referees calling the game and then what coaches are saying. And
Right.
take a listen to let's listen to what JJ Redick is saying. And I think he really spells out the perspective of a lot of coaches and the frustrations they feel.
Any coach, any player, what we ask for is consistency, and that's not to single any official out or any crew out. It's not about that. We need to know what it is night to night. We've had a number, and this is where I get frustrated a little bit, and I keep asking the league to please reach out to me and respond to every time I do the coach's feedback thing. I don't get any response from the league. Nobody ever reaches out to me. The way we do challenges and the definitions of challenges and the definitions of what, the X, Y, or Z and why you can or can't, it's different with every different crew. And we're supposed to have the guy at the replay center, whoever's in charge that night, we're supposed to have like some level of consistency, and the definitions just get changed every single night.
I think this
here's
is
the thing. Let me just say one quick thing, and then I'll give you back the floor. What JJ Redick is saying there, if a majority of his colleagues feel the same way, then there is a definite issue. If that is a prevailing sentiment from coaches that the consistency isn't there, then you do have a problem that has to be addressed. Exactly how it's going to be addressed from here, I'm not sure, but this is all stuff I wish I was smart enough to say I had the fixes and solutions, but I can't say that I do.
I think first of all, it's bad if he really is and the organization really is reaching out for clarity with any frequency and not hearing back from him. That's obviously bad, especially if the league advertises of, hey, we want this policy. We want everybody open door. So if we take them at face value, that would be bad for the NBA that they are less accessible given how inconsistent officiating has been. But here's what I think is the real problem, Mark, and problem meaning the thing that makes this difficult. The NBA this year, if you remember, the points of emphasis were about the foul that I think more people are more upset about in today's NBA than anything, which is sort of you get a guy on your hip, you've beaten him off the dribble a little bit, but not fully, and then you bump into him. You draw the contact. Jalen Brunson, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. These are the guys that excel at that. You get them beat by a half step, and instead of finishing a tough one at the rim or whatever, you kind of get them off balance and then draw the contact into them, and they get a foul. The league said we're making an emphasis of this, that it is a foul. Not that we're going to try to take that out of the game, but hey, this year is what we're going to emphasize. But then you contrast that. So, okay, we can say, even though I don't personally love that rule, you say, okay, well, the league has decided that's what's important. But then you can contrast that with what worked in the postseason last year, which was physicality, full court pressure. We're going to pick guys up now because Oklahoma City, Indiana, they do this and they get handsy and they get physical with you. And so there's this contrasting idea of to play great defense, you have to be extra physical. If a guy has his back to the basket, you can be physical. If he's out on the perimeter, you can be physical. But on the interior or in the paint, if a guy's driving to the basket, the minor amount of contact causes a foul. I think these two things can't be squared. And this is where the frustration comes is, okay, but only in this limited sense are we super protective of people who have the ball. But everywhere else, we want actually more physicality out on the perimeter, and few teams strike that balance and seem to be able to figure out. And it leads to this thing of why is this a foul and not a foul, and nobody seems to understand.
Yeah. And look, on top of everything is the discourse about the Thunder. And, that is what set Chris Finch off. I know the Thunder will vociferously protest this and say the data doesn't support this narrative, but Chris Finch is hardly the first coach to suggest that the Thunder are incredibly physical defensively, and it's hard to apply that same level of physicality to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Chris Finch is certainly not the only coach who has raised that concern. So You're right. I mean, this is I'm going to be really interested to see where this goes from here. Was this just a 1 week blip where we just saw frustration spill out loudly and demonstrably in a manner, involving 4 or 5 coaches that we don't typically see a stretch like this? Or is this just the start of something?
Right.
And, it is Christmas. We're supposed to be in the Christmas spirit. Not a lot of Christmas spirit in the week before Christmas.
Here's what I said. I already see the Thunder fans in the comments. I know that's going to be coming here in the comments saying, "Oh, cry more, whine, this or that." Oh, poor everybody else. The Thunder. The Thunder don't do anything wrong. I know people will find this crazy that I'm saying this. The Thunder don't do anything wrong. I think they are the best at understanding exactly what the rules call for. There's always been your great defenders. Draymond Green for the last 10 years. He gets away with an extra level of physicality, and I think some of it is probably reputation, but some of it he has a sense of how to establish what physicality is going to be allowed early in a game and then staying consistent to it. And it frustrates a lot of people. Dylan Brooks has been able to do this. So good defenders seem to understand it, and the Thunder have no shortage of good defenders. They take advantage of it. And they have an offensive player who best understands, or at least as good as your top tier players like your Brunsons and Austin Reeves, best understand how to exploit it in their favor. So they don't do anything wrong. I think they just understand it better. And every other team that gets against them and rightfully feels like, why do they get to exploit the rules? Well, they get to because they understand it. And I think that's the thing the league that causes this conflict. And now everybody's trying to find the edge. But I will say, as somebody put in the chat, it's a bad precedent. This is only 2 games. I don't think it's a precedent. I think it's a coincidence, but the 2 coaches, high profile coaches, made fusses this week about officiating and were rewarded with it shortly later. That's something that I'm very curious to see how the league handles that going forward. But it is a storyline right now in the NBA because everyone's trying to adjust to whatever these new rules are. Any final thoughts on this one, or do you want to move on to the next topic?
No, we can move on, but it should be said. The Thunder started 24-1. And as I've mentioned to you before, I covered the other 24-1 start in NBA history when the Warriors were 24-0 and finally lost one. It is incredibly difficult to do. And don't forget that the Thunder never had their preferred starting 5 until they got to the NBA Cup semis when they lost to San Antonio. So they have been doing it without their full strength team. And they've got a lot of people frustrated because they win a lot of basketball games. So, but like you said, it's going where this goes from here. Was this just a weird blip of a week, or is this the start of something? Something we definitely got to keep our eye on.
Yeah.
And something you got to ask Legs about too when you have Legs on next, because I want to hear what he thinks about all this.
Who do you think least wants to talk about officiating in the NBA? You or Legs? I'm not sure. It might be a coin flip.
Well, it's just again, I hate
it's a slippery slope for whining.
I hate making that the focus again because it just I just don't it's such a difficult game to referee. And I've told Cuban this for years. Where are the better refs hiding? Where are these amazing refs who are being denied the chance to call NBA games? I don't see that as the case. But look, if you want to go even one step farther, Eric Lewis has been reinstated as a G League referee, which means he might make his way back to the league after the whole social media investigation. And you could also look at that and say, is that an admission from the league that they need every experienced referee they can find? I mean, I'm always fascinated, okay, the pay for referees is good, it's the highest level of the sport, travel conditions are good, it's a good job on a lot of levels, but I'm just, who would want a referee? I mean, I've been doing this more than 30 years and I can't answer that question. You just, it's I wouldn't want to under any circumstances. None.
Well, I mean, I'm with you too. It's very difficult. And your point, though, is Eric Davis. Was that his name? Is that who it was?
Eric Lewis.
Lewis. Sorry, Eric Lewis. He was the one who was caught with a burner, basically arguing fouls with a burner account, and then was tossed out the league. He's been officiating. Now he's reinstated to the G League, which feels like a path back to the NBA.
He retired in the midst of his investigation. He's been calling college games in the intervening, I think, 2 seasons, and now he's been brought back to the league as a G League official. Worked at the Showcase in Orlando, and I think that, given the experience that he has, that's likely a prelude to him coming back to the NBA.
Yeah, but your point specifically was about, can you afford to throw out bad referees unless it's something that you feel is compromising the game? Obviously, scandals and this, betting or whatever. What he did is maybe you relook at it and say, hey, we need good officials. He is one, and his controversy was more almost personality and character, this or that. But he's a good official. We can welcome him back in. That's curious to follow. It's a very good point. Makes me think. I'm going to throw you a curveball, though, before our break, because you mentioned the G League Showcase at the top of the show. And I know this is a big event for a lot of teams because as rosters need to get deeper and the CBA restricts how many guys you can pay, I imagine guys in your G League and your G League program becomes important. But on top of that, people, the league comes together, and anytime you get people in one room or one city, one location, it becomes a big deal. So what can you tell me about the G League Showcase and how teams are approaching it this year and really how they approach it every single year?
Well, look, I would say this. I think this season we've seen so many good players on two-way deals that the talent on the floor at the G League Showcase, it used to be, there's G League games all day long on 2 courts at this event. And, someone like me is like, I'm not there to watch these games. I'm there to try to corner anybody I can to try to, trade intel. I mean, I'm just being candid with you and honest with you. But I think teams are looking at these games more closely because, you've got Spencer Jones in your city where I live. Ryan Nebhard's been a salvation for the Mavs as the two-way guy who's now starting at point guard. Dennis Jenkins in Detroit. I mean, he helped get Detroit back into that game when they were down double digits. He's been fantastic on a two-way. Dominic Barlow for the Sixers. I mean, we can go on and on and on about these two ways. And we saw today, the Spurs made a roster move, and I hope I'm saying his last name properly. He's played with the Bucks and the Pistons before. Staniel Amude. He's now a two-way guy in San Antonio. The Spurs made that roster move today. So I do think teams are looking at potential two-ways in the G League that can be signed, who can help, because you need in this apron era, your two-ways, if you can get contributions from your two-ways, it's just a huge help to the overall finances with the team. But I need to apologize to you, the gentleman that you are. I think you've forgotten this because you are so nice to me. You were gonna give me a hard time. Remember last week? I went on and on and on about how Monday and Tuesday, December 16th is the deadline. There's a decent chance we're gonna see a trade because the reaggregation. And I let you down. I'm apologizing to you. I'm apologizing to everyone in chat. I'm apologizing to James. But look, I take my cues from the people I talk to around the league. And after last season, when the Warriors made that trade on December 15th to get Dennis Schroeder, to set it up so they could retrade Dennis Schroeder on deadline day if they needed to, and that's exactly what happened. That led a fair amount of people that I was talking to say, don't be surprised if we see a deal. Again, those deals have to happen by December 16th, which was this past Tuesday, but we did not see a trade Monday or Tuesday. So the reaggregation deadline is passed, and we did not get trade season off to the saucy start that I was touting. So,
well, I love that you took accountability for your prediction.
I hope I am forgiven.
Kevin in the chat says, I've been waiting a week for the apology. I love it. It was interesting and obviously sound. Last year it obviously happened, and it does seem like there's enough teams that should be interested in this, but maybe deals just didn't manifest. Maybe nobody was really looking. Maybe they just couldn't get them to across the finish line. But to your point about the G League, I do think is interesting because I do feel like we are getting more than ever these two-way players, these rookie players, second-round picks that turn out to be playable guys. And there's just a depth right now of talent that seems to be emerging from weird places. And then on top of that, all these rosters need to play 11, 12, 13 guys, need to go deep with the pace of the era we're in right now. And so it's not just end of bench guys of, you know what, we'll throw this to an agent and do this, or it's a prospect with a lot of upside, but he's pretty raw. It's like, no, you actually need to use your 15 roster spots to attack that season. And so the G League Showcase provides an opportunity for that.
And remember, teams, you see teams because of tax reasons that only want to go to 14. They want to keep that 15 spot open because of luxury tax and apron concerns. So now your 3 two-ways become even more important. And look, I don't have to tell you, the team you watch every day, where would the Nuggets be given the injuries they've had with Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon? Spencer Jones has been huge for them. Yep. And it, like I said, we could go through the standings and find 10 two-way guys who've had that kind of impact. So and now that's a story I love to talk about. I love the notion of finding your 16th, 17th, 18th player and getting a real contribution from that guy. That is fun, and that is scouting. That's what scouting is.
Was it David Jones Garcia this summer played so well in Vegas at Summer League that it ended up getting rostered? And it's just to your point, it just feels like right now, second round picks. There was like 10, maybe 12 years ago. I don't know if you remember this. The Knicks came out and they did a press conference at the start of the second round for their players. And it was this idea of the second round doesn't matter. We're not a second round kind of organization. Everybody has to be a second round organization, an undrafted organization, a look overseas organization, because you'll find talent anywhere. And that's why I think the G League Showcase is interesting, as well as you mentioned, everybody getting together and starting to talk, and the seeds of deals that might materialize over the next 2 months are being planted. And I think that's what's interesting about it. So keep your eye on it, and we'll see what's happening. Let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to talk about the Christmas schedule, which includes a conversation about a team that is on the precipice of disaster in the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll get to that on the other side. First, let me tell you about the presenting sponsor. Every Friday, there's a cool thing going on with FanDuel. Every Friday from 6 to 7:30, it's NBA Happy Hour on FanDuel, your pregame for the weekend. We're talking limited time specials you won't want to miss. Boosts, bonuses, surprises, all dropping in the app during Happy Hour. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app to see the week specials, then make your move before the shot clock expires at 7:30 Eastern. It's the perfect way to start your weekend. A little basketball, a little action, a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, only on FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. You guys know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 states away? Well, I've been there too. I know in my last read for this one, I told you guys that I lost my aviators. I found them. They were in my car, right where they belong. They were just buried a little bit further. But had I not, I would have been able to hit up Shady Rays. They've changed the game. They're sunglasses that are made for real life, seriously good looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. And the wild part is, if you lose or break them even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So now you can actually wear your sunglasses without fear. On hikes, at concerts, on a boat, wherever you want to go, Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code AC35 for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. AC35. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, back here, final segment here. Me and Marc Stein on the weekends, talking about what's going on in the NBA. And this week, Mark, what's going on? Just one of the biggest days of the year for the NBA's regular season. Christmas Day slate. And I think they got a lot of it right. when the schedule dropped earlier in the year, I think there were some teams I wondered about, maybe some games I wondered about. But as I was getting ready for the show, I was like, man, there is a storyline around every single one of these games. If I were to ask you of the 5 games, Cavs, Knicks, Spurs, Thunder, Mavericks, Warriors, Rockets, Lakers, Timberwolves, Nuggets, first of all, one way to make the schedule great, just put 4 Western Conference games up. You're probably going to, you don't have to split this perfectly down the middle, East and West as they did. But when you look at this, what game sticks out to you the most as going to be a must-see event on Christmas Day?
Well, I think Spurs Thunder jumps off the page after the game that they after the game they just played in Vegas at the NBA Cup. Obviously, living in Dallas, Mavs Warriors, I'll be working that game, but what's so crazy about that is if the Warriors don't beat Orlando, I believe it's tomorrow night, that's a matchup of 2 sub 500 teams. Not exactly what the league office was hoping for there. But I was actually going to ask you, I feel like Denver always gets the 5th slot, that late game. Yeah. Like, what is that like on Christmas? The Nuggets are always playing in that late game. And look, Timberwolves Nuggets has become somewhat of a rivalry given the playoff battles that these teams have had.
Somewhat.
So I mean, is that okay? You tell that.
It's not like a storied rivalry with decades of history, but it is a very heated rivalry when you talk about the last couple of seasons. So
is that Denver's foremost rival at this point?
I think so. One of the things I was thinking about, Mark, is that this playoffs, I think, is going to have a lot of bad blood. And it's going to create rivalries. It's hard in today's NBA to have what the Celtics and Lakers had in the 80s. And, it's just hard to get the storylines that go as long as they did in previous iterations of some of these. But when I look at it and I go, you know what? You saw what happened with Bruce Brown and Kevin Durant in that Rockets-Nuggets game the other day, going at each other, jawing at each other. You have Şengün and Jokic. San Antonio and Oklahoma City have some bad blood. Minnesota, Denver, you mentioned. Denver, Oklahoma City last year. I just look around the league. Oklahoma City and Kevin Durant's Houston Rockets. There's so many different combinations you could put in the playoffs right now where I go, there's a good storyline of bad blood between those two teams. I think this playoffs, especially in the West, but even in the East, you have a little bit of this. This playoffs, I think, is going to be a bloodbath of narratives and fan bases that hate each other. And we don't always get that. I think this year we're guaranteed to get some teams that don't like each other facing off every single round.
And look, I do not want to just skip over Knicks Cavs because the Cavs, we've touched on it a little bit. I mean, it is staggering to me to see the state of the Cavs. They were 15-0 to start last season. They are 15-14. And look, injuries have been an undeniable factor. Darius Garland, he's got this toe issue. Jared Allen has missed time. Their shooters, Strus and Merrill, have missed time. Fine. Injuries are some of it. But this is an Eastern Conference for the taking. And they're a 500 team. I mean, Adam, they just played Washington, Charlotte, and Chicago twice and almost went 0-4. They narrowly escaped against the Wizards. They went scoreless in overtime against Charlotte. They lost a home and home to a Bulls team. Okay, the Bulls even tonight won an absolute circus of a game. I think 152-150 against Atlanta. But the Bulls have been a mess before these last 2 games. Like, again, you asked me to start tonight, when I talk to other teams, when I talk to people from other teams, what are they bringing up? They are bringing up the Cavs and they are bringing up the Clippers. Those are the 2 subjects that I get hit the most on. And like, I am stunned to see Cleveland in the state that it's in.
So all year I've been saying they're injured and it's unfortunate. Their season, it's not like they're injured and they were going to get healthy. They were injured and they were going to have to deal with this for a while. And I look at the East and I still say the nice thing about the East is the Cavs, as rough as it's been, they're only 3 games away from a 3 seed. And with as bad as it's been, that's nice. You can just go on a run and climb the standings. But are people around the league starting to think it's not just that? There might be something with this team. Maybe it's emotional or the locker room and how things are. Is there a start to worry that, hey, man, maybe there's something worse?
Look, I'll flat out tell you, for the last couple of weeks, I've heard rumbles in coaching circles about, asking about Kenny Atkinson and about pressure mounting on Kenny Atkinson. And I frankly didn't believe it, because I'm like, the guy just won Coach of the Year. It's year 2. He's not even halfway through year 2, and he won Coach of the Year in his first season. But look, Dan Gilbert, Chris Fedor from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, who covers that beat very closely, knows the Cavs as well as anyone. He reported this week that Dan Gilbert, according to his sources, is very unhappy with the state of the team. And when Dan Gilbert is very unhappy, that certainly is not going to diminish or turn down the volume on any notion that some kind of shakeup is coming. Can the Cavs trade Garland or Jared Allen when they're both struggling the way they are and their value is depressed? Also, don't forget, the Cavs are the only second apron team in the whole NBA. They have the highest payroll in the league, which complicates their ability to make moves, because when you're a second apron team, you can't aggregate contracts. You can't put player contracts together. There's that aggregation deadline again, and that's, with the Cavs, the deadline doesn't matter, because as long as they're in the second apron, they can't aggregate anybody. They can only trade players, one at a time. So there are no easy fixes here. I mean, I don't disagree with what you said. It is the East, which is incredibly forgiving. I'm sure when the league hatched the Christmas Day schedule, their thinking was Knicks, Cavaliers, these are supposed to be the clear-cut 2 best teams in the East. The Knicks just won the NBA Cup and look a lot closer to the Knicks we expected this season. Can this Christmas Day game snap the Cavs out of their funk? I mean, again, they just went through a ridiculously easy stretch of schedule. Only 4 games in 13 days against bottom feeders. And again, they very easily could have gone 0-4. So I think the concerns in Cleveland and the chatter about what the Cavs are going to do is very much justified.
Well, let me ask you this, because as you were talking, it made me think of a random little tangent here. But, Matt Ishbia, Dan Gilbert have themselves a well-publicized rivalry. They come from the same field, the same background. They both own a team. And when Ishbia became owner of the Suns, he had no shortage of bad things to hurl over at Dan Gilbert. They have a rivalry that you don't seem to mind making public. Matt Ishbia has a disaster season last year. The Cavs have an incredible one. There must have been this balance between the two of them, unspoken, of course. But this year it's inverted. The Suns are the Cinderella story of the season, and here are the Cavs. Do you think there's is there anything to that rivalry? Is that a rivalry that gets discussed behind closed doors a little bit about how much those two seem to not care for each other?
No, look, if we ever saw Cavs Suns finals, you'll be reading long form every day about the Gilbert Ishbia rivalry. But again, they only play each other twice. They only play each other twice a season, and they can't play in the playoffs unless they get to the finals. So I think that limits the ability to really turn this into something. But yeah, I mean, there would definitely be coverage that you would enjoy, let's say.
I just wondered if Dan Gilbert was looking across the standings and seeing he has the same record as Ishbia's Phoenix Suns and is like, you know what? We need a trade. We need something to happen. I can't stand for this. Kind of tongue in cheek, but it is. I will say, I think it's fun when there's a ownership rivalry. It adds a new layer to it. Just like when there's a coaches rivalry, we always just think of it as players or fan bases. Cavs Knicks, that's the dud. It's the morning one, so whatever. But I think that next game, Spurs Thunder, as you mentioned to me, that's the marquee. And it's funny that that's the marquee because they're young teams. But those two teams, I mean, they lose to the Thunder in the NBA Cup, and then Wembanyama goes out there talking about ethical basketball. Chet and Wemby have a rivalry. These are ascending teams. Yeah. Well, we're unsure what happened to the stream, to the feed there, and we're unsure if we're even back, but we were getting to the end. Mark, I was just saying that I think that Thunder Spurs game, the NBA, I knew they knew it would be a good game, but I don't think they knew it would be this good.
Well, my question, like I said, so because you got the late game, so like you get all your Christmas in,
It's so perfect.
Then the Nuggets play late, so it's like a seamless. It's just smooth.
Yeah, no, 100% true. It's 100% true, man. I love when they're on the late game because, to your point, 8:30 Mountain Time, which is when this happens, Christmas is pretty much over. Everybody's been up since the crack of dawn. You've gone through everything, and it's a nice little nightcap. So I don't mind it at all. And by the way, Timberwolves Nuggets, easily the second best game. Rockets Lakers is great. Mavs Warriors, a lot of intrigue there. Big game for the Mavericks. They're on the comeback trail right now, trying to claw back into this conversation for the playoffs. But Timberwolves Nuggets. The Nuggets obviously are the 2 seed or tied for the 2 seed right now. And the Timberwolves finally look like the team I predicted them to be preseason. They absolutely are on the doorstep of knocking into that contender tier. And Sunday, if they win that game in Denver, I think people will talk about them in the category of the Houston, of Denver, San Antonio Lakers. I think they will be in that conversation.
I'm just glad we got the apparatus back up and running so we could put a proper bow on this show, because we had I love seeing a huge crowd late on a Sunday night steal the NFL's thunder a little bit. Got a lot of hoop heads in the chat with us.
That's right.
Thanks everybody for being here. Wishing everybody a great holiday season, and glad that we unfroze ourselves.
Me as well. We do have one super chat. We always pay the people when they super chat us. We play them on the show here, Mark, and I think it's for you. So let's play it here and see what they had to say today. What do they got for us, James?
I apologize. I can't bring it up anymore because of the breakdown, but I can tell you what it is.
Okay.
It was, if anyone else is interested, it was specifically asking Mark, if anyone is interested in Herb Jones other than the Lakers, have you heard any buzz?
I mean, there's a long list of teams that want Herb Jones, but the Pelicans are making it quite clear that it will take an absolute haul to get them to part with Herb Jones. I think Queen and Fears, the rookies, are the most untouchable in New Orleans, but Herb Jones and Trey Murphy are not far off. Murphy, have you seen Murphy's numbers lately? I mean, he is just shooting the snot out of the ball, to say it a little more politely than I would like to. I mean, both Jones and Murphy are in huge demand. I don't see the Pelicans trading either one. I just don't think anyone is going to meet their price point. But it's interesting that the Pels have won 4 in a row here. They're up to 7 wins, but it's like they've got a 7-win team, and we're talking about how untouchable, or how how hard it would be to try to, if you wanted to try to get Queen or Fears or Murphy or Herb Jones away from the Pelicans. Absolutely out of the question. They have 7 wins.
Yeah, they have 7 wins. But you know what? I love the question. Clearly a Lakers fan saying, hey, this 3-and-D player, one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, is on a great contract. Is only the Lakers interested in him? No, I think everyone in the NBA wants
every team needs 3-and-D guys, and the problem is right now the market is very limited. The only 3-and-D guy who's clearly available is Keon Ellis in Sacramento. And there are some scouts who would quibble with the notion that he's really 3-and-D. He's not a huge wing. I mean, he does shoot. He has shot the 3 well, but it's been curious. His minutes have been down this season. Is that because he's out of favor in Sacramento, or is that because they know they want to trade him and they're just playing him less to try to hopefully prevent him from getting injured? I mean, that's the other. I mean, in this wacky first third of the season, the Sacramento Kings, the worst record in the West, and the Clippers ain't far off.
And the Clippers
crazy,
right there. So
crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff.
At least the Clippers aren't on Christmas this year. You can cue that outro music there, James. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us here on a Sunday, and special shout out to all of the people, a couple hundreds of you that stayed through a 5-minute intermission there while we tried to figure out what happened. Somebody hacked our computers and tried to freeze the stream.
I think it was the league office didn't like the tone of our officiating discussion.
You might be right, actually. You know what? I'm going to have to call Adam Silver right now and apologize. Everybody, thanks so much for tuning in with us. Catch Mark all week over DLLS Mavericks, especially on Christmas Day. You can find me over on DNVR Nuggets as well. Me and Legs are back tomorrow. We got a lot to talk about. We'll see you then.
city like the mayor.